I've said this before. The blues are comedy. That certainly a lot of tragic songs have been written in blues progressions, but that striding 12-bar blues, that's comedy. That stride is the way a proud man with money in his pockets walks down the street. That's why it's called stride. You can hear it better on the piano than you can hear it on the guitar, certainly better than you can hear it on my guitar. And stride is a whole school of piano in blues and jazz. Bebop is built out of stride piano. The 12-bar blues. Bebop is all the 12-bar blues. It's very hard to find. You really have to listen for it, but it's all right there. If you learn the progression and learn to listen for that progression, you'll see how bebop musicians are not deviating from it. They are completing it and essentially sanctifying it in music theory. The music theory of bebop is really, really arcane and interesting. I've been thinking about it. I have a young friend who is a trumpet player in his grade school band. And I've been thinking about great trumpet players like Miles Davis, great bebop trumpet players. Thinking about Miles leads me to the Miles Davis, John Coltrane cover of Around About Midnight by Thelonious Monk. And then we get to Thelonious Monk, and I think Monk is the greatest composer of the 20th century. The bebop composers are all underappreciated because they were associated with the idea of improvisation, but improvisation doesn't mean playing noise like I'm playing now. It means having a real deep understanding of music theory and being able to express those ideas on the fly with a minimum of advanced preparation. And listen to Monk play Around About Midnight, or listen to Monk play Tempest Fugit, or Straight No Chaser. Follow Straight No Chaser is 12-bar blues. If you listen for it, you'll find it, and then follow it all the way through, and you will get an education in the 12-bar blues, just like that. But this is comedy. It's the second act right here. And now we get to the third act. And the story is, this is how I eventually got laid. That's the whole story of the 12-bar blues, is how I eventually got laid. And if you listen to traditional 12-bar blues songs, don't listen to the lyrics, because the lyrics often convey tragic ideas, but just listen to the music, and listen to that stride, and listen to that happiness as you work your way through the troubles you found. Can't see up, I spent all my time looking down, but then I met a woman. She treated me like she should. Now my life seems very, 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 very good. I didn't write those lyrics in advance, that's why they suck. They might suck less if I had written them in advance. But the lyrics are really just there to hold the music anyway, and it's the music that tells the story. It's a beautiful story. I am in a pleasant frame of mind this morning. I looked down at my bathroom scale and saw the number 180. And I don't remember the last time I saw the number 180, but I'm thinking it's before the turn of the millennium. I put up a post on self-adoration this morning. It's something I wrote about a year ago on splendorquest.com, but I put it on self-adoration.com this morning and revised it. It's called The High D Diet, How to Lose Weight Without Even Trying. It's a connection right back to the DISC system, which we've been talking about for a couple of months now anyway, maybe longer. But as I've mentioned before, I am a very high D in the DISC system, that all I really care about is getting things done. Doing important things and finishing them. That's what the mark of a D. And in consequence, I don't pay any attention to food, and I end up eating, or can end up eating badly, and eating badly consistently, meal after meal after meal, for years on end. And I did that from 1998 until 2010 or so. 12 years of eating at my desk and not really paying attention to what was going into me and not exercising nearly enough, and it started to tell. I kept having to buy new trousers. Not often, but often enough, and I went from 34-inch waist to a 45-inch waist. It's 11 inches in 12 years. That's... If that were a good progress, it would be an impressive progress. In fact, it's bad progress, but it was a fairly steady progress. And that's the way that people gain weight. That's the way it happens. Is you take in more than you spend, and the surplus accumulates somewhere. For men, it's often around the waist, and that is, of course, the source of heart attacks. So a good reason for moderating your diet. Make sure that you don't die prematurely. But I saw myself in a mirror. You can't trust the mirror. You really can't trust the mirror because you see what you want to see. And so, here I am over the course of 12 years, steadily gaining weight and not really noticing it all that much, and occasionally resolving to do something about it, and then not really following through in any kind of adequate way. But not really being all that concerned about it anyway, because I'm a D. What I care about is getting things done. I don't really care about anything else. And so gradually gaining weight, okay, big deal. And then one day I looked at myself in the mirror, and I looked porcine to myself, pig-like. What makes us think of a porcine expression is the tininess of the eyes compared to the rest of the face. And that's what I saw. I saw a huge round face with tiny little eyes. And I've always had huge eyes. One of the ways that people have of announcing that they have no way of disputing what I have to say is to make fun of my facial expressions, especially my eyes. When somebody insults you about an irrelevancy, what they're telling you is that they have absolutely nothing else to say, which is fine with me. It's perfectly fine with me. What's rule number 2? I am not arguing with you. I don't go to your church. I am not arguing with you. Don't be an asshole. I don't care. If you say something irrelevant, I'll leave it hanging there because it's completely irrelevant. It means nothing to me. It has nothing to do with what I said. And so, have at it. Have fun with it. Enjoy that. But I like my eyes, and I like the fact that I can open my eyes so wide that you can see the whites all the way around. And I couldn't see my eyes in the mirror. It was disturbing to me. Obviously, again, what you see in the mirror is what the spin that you put on it, the interpretation that you put on it. And so I didn't look any different than I had the day before. I didn't look any different than I would the next day. But in that particular glimpse in the mirror, I saw somebody who looked very pig-like to me, and I didn't like it. I'm not comfortable with the incredible manatee girth of my fellow Americans, but I didn't want to number myself among them. I didn't want to be that guy. And so I resolved to change my habits, and the changes I made are very minor. They're discussed in the post, but I can summarize them right here. Eat half as much twice as often. In other words, any particular time that you're going to eat, only eat half as much as you normally would have eaten, or only eat half as much as you think you want. And eat twice as often, and you won't eat twice as often. I typically eat now 4 or 5 small meals a day. I live a very long day. I sleep maybe 6 hours a day, so I live a real long day. But everything I eat, this is something that I've been thinking about lately. It's right there. I have huge hands. I have really big hands. I'm a big guy. But I realized just lately that the size of the human hand is what it is. This is paleoevolution in action. Your hand is the size it is because that's how much you should eat. You should eat a handful. I eat less than a handful when I eat. I eat 4 or 5 meals a day, and I eat less than a handful of food. Sometimes almost nothing. I mean, I will grab a half a dozen grapes, and that will tide me over for hours because all I really need is energy. I don't need, bulk or protein or any of the other things you get from food. But often all I need is just a little shot of energy. So I eat a half a dozen grapes, and that's plenty. But your hand is the size it is to tell you how much to eat. And if you're eating twice that much or 3 times that much or 5 times that much, then you're overeating. Eat what fits in your hand and nothing else. And if that's not enough, don't eat more right away. Just get on with what you're doing because you took the edge off your hunger. You don't need it anymore. And then if you find yourself hungry again later, then eat that much or less later. But eat half as much twice as often. That much is easy. I stopped drinking sweetened drinks of all types, soda, fruit juices. I don't drink alcohol, so that's not a problem. I do have a beer with dinner 5 nights a week, one beer. That's recent. I don't really care for alcohol, but I don't drink anything but water or coffee typically, so beer is my big variety drink. My big variety for the day is a Bud Light with dinner. But I cut out all sweetened drinks, fruit juices, including artificially sweetened drinks. I don't like them anyway, so that wasn't a problem. I didn't have to cut them out because I didn't have them in the first place. But I live in Arizona. It's real easy to think in terms of those 32 and 44 ounce sodas that you can get at any drive-thru. Those 12 years that I was gaining weight, they knew my name at Taco Bell. Not so much because of the food, but because of the Pepsi. I like Pepsi rather than Coke, or Mountain Dew rather than anything else. Get myself 32 ounce Mountain Dew, 2 little tacos. That's not much food, but that 32 ounce Mountain Dew, man, that's with you forever. So I cut out the sweetened drinks, and I eliminated virtually all optional grains from my life. I call it fancy wheat, but I really think in terms of all grains, not just wheat. Wheat is the most pernicious, and white flour is the most pernicious kind of wheat. But corn, oats, every sort of grain, I tend to avoid. It's really impossible to keep it out of your diet because it's everywhere. But to the extent that I'm interested in eating any sort of grains, it's as more as architecture than food. So breakfast sandwich, like an egg and McMuffin, there's no way to eat that without the muffin. I don't eat egg McMuffins, but I do have breakfast sandwiches like that, and they're croissants. White flour and butter. I mean, it's white flour and butter, probably sugar, and who knows what. It's not good. But it's very little wheat compared to the stuff that I'm really there for, which is the egg and the sausage. And that's the way I have wheat, is basically as architecture and as a de facto napkin to keep greasy foods off my fingers. I eat almost no wheat, almost no grains of any sort. And those three things, over time, have made a remarkable difference. I have lost on the order of 70 pounds since I started doing this. Slowly, not quickly, slowly. I am at a 36-inch waist now, and I am within easy striking distance of a 34-inch waist, where I was in 1998. And it's all as a result simply of changing my habits. I do not think about, I'm talking about food now, but I do not think about food typically. I just control what I buy, and therefore I control what I eat. And in consequence, I don't eat the wrong things. And as a result of not eating the wrong things over time, just as I gain the weight slowly, I'm losing the weight slowly. And at some point, very soon, I'm going to have to start thinking about eating more in order to sustain a weight, in order to stop losing weight. I am at 180 pounds now. 180 is a very respectable weight for my height. I'm 6'2". 180 is a very respectable weight. I think I'm headed for 170, maybe 165. I was 145 forever. 26-inch waist or 28-inch waist. I'm not headed that way. That's kind of the Arizona cowboy look, and it's a little too thin for me. I could pull it off, but I'm not interested. But the high D diet at selfadoration.com is worth your pursuit. It's worth reading, because I will show you how to get the weight loss that you're looking for without the outrageous dieting, without the ridiculous exercising, without eating stupid foods and doing incredible violence to your body, just in order to achieve some kind of dramatic weight gain. I'm not into weight loss, rather. I'm not interested in dramatic results ever, because drama usually is a harbinger of some other problem. I'm interested in slow, steady, consistent changes. And this is what I achieve that way. And it's very much the high D way of doing it. I don't care about eating, and I don't want to have to care about eating. And so I just changed my habits so I don't care about eating in a slightly different way. And that's what's worked for me. The other thing that has me kind of excited right now, I'm going to be speaking at the 21 convention next month, the last weekend in October in Tampa. And I am the penultimate speaker, the one before last. And if I know in advance that I'm going to be talking, then I get a wonderful chance to freak out about it. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to freak out about it, and yet I can't avoid it. My ideal circumstance for speaking before a crowd is to know about it maybe 3 minutes in advance so that I can scribble down 2 or 3 little notes and that's it, and just talk like I'm talking right now. Because the more time I have to prepare, the more time I will spend obsessing and changing my mind and revising everything. And I intend to put on a killer presentation, so I know I'll put a lot of effort into it. And that'll be fun for me because it's work, but it's also kind of stressful work because I don't like the stress. But I really like speaking in public. I really like talking to people. I wish I could do it more often. I wish I had more opportunities to do it. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to the event because I'm going to get to see a lot of people I know and like, and get to meet a whole lot of other people that I know I will like, and I will learn a ton, as will everyone who is there. I know Anthony has links attached to these videos that will take you to the 21 Convention's website, and if you can make yourself available that weekend, and if he still has tickets available, I don't know if he does, but if he does, you should snag one, because it will be a great show. If you're a young man who really wants to make the most of his life, you will get a graduate education in how to be a better man in the course of one weekend. I'll be one of a dozen or so presentations, maybe 16 presentations, I don't know how many there are. I'll be one of them, but all of them will be excellent, and you will learn an enormous amount, and you will meet people who will be beneficial to you going forward, but who will be a lifelong influence on your life. These are people that you will remember on your deathbed. These are people who will influence your children and your children's children through you. And I think it's a remarkably good investment for a young man who really wants to make more of his life. And I'm looking forward to meeting the young men because I did it in August of 2012 in Austin, and the young men who go to this show are just amazing to me. And I want to be proud of young men. There's too many opportunities not to be proud of young men right now. I like the young men that I can be proud of. And that's really what I'm talking about today is if you want to see better people in the world, if you want to see better people in the world, be one. But if you want to see better people in the world, make them yourself. I wrote this week about the anti-family bias in libertarian thought. And it runs all through it, not as an explicit matter of doctrine or policy, but really it's there mostly in its absence, that there's almost nothing in libertarian theory that is pro-family. And in consequence, libertarianism ends up being de facto anti-family by dint of that omission. And this is something obviously I'm aiming to correct, starting with Father's Day, but really starting with Man Alive, continuing with Father's Day, 9 Empathies, Shiley's Delight. The 4 books that I've written since 2012 have all been directed really at fathers. I mean, I'm interested in talking to unmarried people, I'm interested in talking to women, I'm interested in talking to moms, I'm interested in talking to kids, but I'm really interested in talking to fathers. Because fathers are the source of human civilization. We've talked about that in recent months also, the fact that the hoplite model of the family is what makes Western civilization, and hoplite civilization is civilization. If we're going to draw a bright line, we're going to draw it there, that everything else is not civilization because it doesn't provide for the ultimate maximization of human potential, that children who grow up to realize their full potential as human beings overwhelmingly come from well-fathered families. It's not an absolutely necessary condition. A child can father himself. I certainly offer myself as an example. I don't know that I'm achieving my maximum potential, but taking account that I'm pioneering ideas that no one has ever talked about before, I kind of think maybe I am. But in any case, I didn't have the benefit of a committed father at home. My father's a great guy, and he's really amazing, very high D, as are my brothers. But I didn't have him at home, and I ended up raising myself, which is fine. I mean, it's perfectly fine with me, but it's rare. It's not common. And to the contrary, children who grow up in single mother homes tend to fare substantially worse than children who grow up in single father homes. And it doesn't matter how the father came to be a single father, whether it was through widowhood or divorce. In single mother homes, it matters a great deal, whether it happened through widowhood or divorce. If she's a widow, dad's really still there. She's really still married to him, and dad is still a living moral exemplar, even though he is a dead body. But when mom uses the force of the state to chuck dad out, she's chucking fatherhood out with him, chucking the entire idea of fatherhood out with him, and that tells the children. This is not one of the things that you'll find when you start to look into marriage and family is you'll see that everybody, not just the libertarians, but everybody is always talking about the adults and almost nobody is talking about the children. And to the extent that they talk about children at all, they lie, oh, children recover from divorce. Children are resilient. They'll get over it. Lately, we're hearing the battle for gay marriage rights is apparently won because now we're suddenly hearing about the absolute desperate necessity for polyamorous marriage rights. Because the two things that children thrive best upon are chaos and being different. That's what children like. Oh yeah, I have 2 moms and 3 dads. That's what a kid wants to say when he shows up for the 3rd grade so that all the other kids can point and laugh. But today he has 2 moms and 3 dads, and tomorrow he has 1 mom and 2 dads, and the day after that he has 3 moms and 1 dad, and the day after that he has no adult left except somebody he only met 7 weeks ago. This is what will happen in polyamorous relationships. A polyamorous relationship is just a set of rotating roommates. And if adults want to do that all on their own, I really don't give a shit. But as soon as you have children, you are doing incredible violence to those children simply by indulging your own whims without any consciousness of the consequence of the children. But this kind of relates back to the libertarian problem. The problem that I addressed this week is the fact that libertarians are overwhelmingly C's, cautious in their disc profile. Enormously, often INTJ, INTP, high C's, just like Ayn Rand, just like Hayek, just like von Mises, just like Rothbard, just like Nozick. They may be that aboriginally by predisposition, and therefore they're attracted to libertarianism because so many of almost all of the libertarian theorists are INTX, INTJ, INTP, high Cs, and they may be drawn to them because they feel an affinity to them, or they may change their emotional, motivational predispositions in order to mimic those people. But either way, an enormous number of serious libertarians, there are a lot of people who call themselves libertarians who are really just hard Republicans or fanboys or whatever. But if you've read any of the thinkers that I named, if you've read them in the original Rand, Rothbard, Nozick, David Friedman, the Blocks, Hayek, von Mises, if you read any of those in the original, I will give you a disc test, and at the end of the day, we will come up with 90% plus high C's. And the interesting thing about the cautious strategy is that it's unilateral both ways. It's unilateral in its displays and unilateral in its value pursuits. And it's a very bad way to make families. That a family is a mutually reciprocal, recurring arrangement. The transactions are recurring, ongoing, recurring transactions. And if you're going to measure who came out 1 up and 1 down in each one of those transactions, you're going to be very dissatisfied in very short order, particularly if you have children. Your relationship with your spouse, if you're keeping count, you may end up feeling like, it's even money, or maybe even you're coming out ahead, depending on how you measure things. If you really hate to do dishes, my wife does dishes every day. I do dishes maybe once a week. And when do I do dishes? When there are a lot of them, when it's a big, daunting job. She does it when it's tiny little nothing jobs, 2 or 3 or 5 dishes to put into the dishwasher. And I do it when both sinks are full. And this works for us. I mean, we're not measuring anything. Nobody's measuring anything in our family. We're very happy with the way things are working out. But that's a really appropriate way for a man to be involved in any kind of housework, is to do the daunting job, because the daunting job is the one she doesn't want to do. It's the everyday job that's no problem for her. She's doing it as a matter of course while she's doing other stuff, while she's cooking, while she's cleaning up the kitchen, while she's feeding the cats, while she's talking on the telephone. And when it's too sinful, then it's a real big daunting job, and she really doesn't want to do it, and I just jump in and take care of it. That's my kind of job. That's a high D job. I can't see 5 dishes in a sink. I just can't see it. If the dishes aren't in my way, they don't matter. It doesn't matter until they're in the way, and then it's a high D job, and then I'm interested in doing it. But if you're that kind of cautious temperament, if you're a high C temperament, the give and take that goes into that kind of reciprocal relationship is going to rankle like crazy, and it's going to make it very difficult for you to sustain any kind of a storgic relationship. Storgic friendship will be difficult. Storgic romantic relationship, like a marriage, will be more difficult. And a storgic relationship, like having children, virtually impossible. The costs are going to be obvious to you, and the benefits really never are, because the benefits are basically all emotional. The children will never pay off in terms of their monetary cost, their opportunity cost. They will pay off immediately and increasingly in accelerating fashion in greater and more impressive benefits, emotional benefits going forward up to forever until you die. But they will never pay you back financially. And so if you're going to tote up all they're costing you, all you're going to do is resent them. And high C's do that math in advance, and they tend not to have children. And this is true for high C's in general, for the college educated in general, for people who admire academics and scientists in general. They don't have children. Not now. I mean, in the past they have, but they don't now. It's out of fashion. And that's part of what is affecting libertarians, is this stupid fashion among the educated to be anti-child, to be anti-children, anti-childbirth, to view human beings. This was in Kevin Tomlinson in the National Review this week. I see it from time to time, to view human beings as a liability, as a net liability rather than an asset. Of course, this is the most amazing asset in the history of history, is that great big blob of gray matter above your eyes. And yet, in the cautious point of view, all people are an unnecessary distraction. Barely tolerable when they're well regulated, and the fact of the matter is they're never well regulated. Cautious people in general don't have children. Libertarians are hugely cautious people, very well thought out, very well articulated cautious philosophy. And in consequence, they end up being anti-child, anti-childbirth, anti-family. De facto, not explicitly, but de facto anti-family. This is a hugely tragic mistake, unbelievably stupid mistake. I am half convinced that libertarianism was started by the CIA as a way of short-circuiting bright people who otherwise might be very troublesome, give them something to yammer about, give them all kinds of statistics to throw around, give them all kinds of things, all kinds of arcane details to quibble about, and talk them out of having children. And they'll be neutralized. That certainly is the effect. If this was not the intent, it is absolutely the effect that libertarians are functionally ineffectual on the political stage. Their only impact is to make Republicans slightly less retarded. That's a Pyrrhic victory. And because they don't have children, their ideas do not survive them. The philosophical movements are made by fathers. They are made by fathers, and it's fathers teaching their children their ideas. And if there are no libertarian fathers, real fathers, committed fathers, living at home with their children, fathers, living at home, providing a moral example for their children, and providing detailed, abstract, moral instruction to their children, those ideas don't get transmitted. That libertarian ideas are transmitted to children in late high school, early college age by means of the novels of Ayn Rand and the barely readable books of people like Hayek and von Mises and Rothbard. David Friedman, who concoct incredibly elaborate, completely useless social ideas because they don't have any experience with people. They don't have any social experience, whatever. They don't like people. The whole purpose is to try to engineer a political situation where people are least pernicious, least a burden. Again, seen as a liability. This is one of the things that libertarianism has in common with Marxism. The anti-children, anti-family nature of libertarianism is in common with Marxism, but also that idea of people are something to be fenced off and put out of the way. People are a liability. These are ideas that need to change. I mean, I really love children. I'm a high D, and I really love children. I am unlike libertarian theorists in general. I am unlike libertarians, period, I think. Certainly, libertarians don't have much to do with me. They don't quote me. I don't know if they read me or not, but they don't quote me. They don't link to me. But I'm very different from that in this key respect, in the sense that I am adamantly 100% pro-family, because the family is the only redoubt against all forms of tyranny, not just the state, but religious tyranny or social pressure. Any of the different ways that people can turn on you, the only people who will turn toward you when everyone else turns on you are the people who love you storgically, the members of your family. May not be blood relatives, they may be social relationships, people that you've met and formed a storgic friendship or a storgic romantic relationship with, a marriage with. But the only people who are going to stand with you when everyone else stands against you are the members of your family. And in that respect, the family is the only redoubt for an adult against tyranny. Obviously, the family is the only way that you get self-responsible adults. And self-responsible adults are the only real protection you have from that kind of mob rule, is for other people to think as you do about the importance of human autonomy, human sovereignty, of the importance of the family. People who share your values. And so for libertarians to be anti-family for themselves, everybody gets to choose for himself, and if you don't want kids, you shouldn't have kids. If you know you're going to be a bad parent, don't be a parent at all. But that anti-family stuff is consequential in the sense that it leaves no heirs to carry on the family tradition. But the anti-family attitude itself means that other people's children will not promote the cause of human autonomy, human sovereignty either. Libertarians, by being anti-family, give up the entire game. They give up the entire battle. Whatever it is they think they're fighting for, what they're actually fighting for is more tyranny, because the only thing that can result from being anti-family is more tyranny. There is no alternative to the family. Everything that we associate with tyranny is an attempt to supplant not just the family, it's an attempt to supplant the human mind. It's an attempt to obviate and really to prevent the working of the human mind, to prevent human intelligence. But the family is an aspect, a very important aspect of human intelligence. That's why Marxism is opposed to it. And if you're opposed to it, you are one with the Marxists. You are not in favor of human liberty unless you are pro-family, because the family is the source of all of human liberty. If you are a high C, if you are of a cautious temperament, and you want to change that, and I suggest that you do change it, because I think it's a very poor strategy for executing a life. It's a very good strategy in any particular iteration of a game. I don't like game theory because life is not a game. Human life is not a game. I don't like the term game theory, but you can look at any particular one-off transaction as a game in which ideally both traders will profit, but one definitely is going to. And the cautious strategy is to make sure that I'm the one who profits. Even if the other guy loses, to hell with the other guy. Divil take the hindmost. In any particular transaction, that can seem to make sense, because I won, he lost. That's the way I wanted it. But there will not be recurring transactions with that person, because as soon as that other person realizes that you don't give a shit if he comes out ahead or not, he's going to find somebody else to trade with. If he has any choice, he's going to trade with somebody else. And so your strategy has now become, your long-term strategy has now become churn and burn. churn through each new trading partner you find until he figures out that you're a gonoff, a thief, a schnorrer at best. I love Yiddish. I love the Yiddish language. It's so ugly, it's beautiful. I talk all the time about foreign glyphs. I look at glyphs, letter forms in languages that I can't read, languages I don't even know, and I love them. I love the glyphs in other languages. I love Korean because the glyphs are beautiful. Every Korean glyph is a map to a beautiful ornamental garden. I know nothing about Korean other than the letter forms, and I love the letter forms. But I love Yiddish because it's such an ugly language. It's so Germanic and yet so Aramaic and Hebraic and just so ghetto that it's beautiful. It ends up being beautiful. But the cautious strategy is the strategy of the gonoff. The cautious strategy is the strategy of the chiseler, of the grinder, of the... Let me just grind out a little bit of profit on this transaction and grind out a little bit of profit on the next transaction, and I'll be profitable. I won't have anybody who wants to do business with me. I won't have any long-term business relationships. I won't have any long-term friendships. I certainly won't have any long-term romantic relationships. I'm ahead. I won. He lost. That's the way I wanted it. If you are afflicted with this kind of cautious temperament, my advice to you is to work to change it, to understand especially the sociable strategy, to trade love for love, but also to really get in tune to the driven strategy, the one that I deploy, the high D strategy, to think in terms of using human affection as a way of achieving the profits you're looking for. Because my profit per transaction might be smaller than yours, but everybody wants to come back and do business with me. And I end up reaping all kinds of emotional benefits that will never be available to the cautious person. The people who like doing business with me like doing business with me, and they give me all kinds of emotional rewards and substantive, tangible rewards, being invited to dinner, being invited to anniversary parties, being invited to weddings, graduations. I get to see your children growing up, which I really love. I told you about my young trumpet playing friend. I love to watch children of the people I do business with. I get to watch them grow up, and I get to see how they prosper in the world, how life takes them and how they take it. You look at me smiling right now, how I feel about it. You can't have that if you see other people as simply as a means to your end. If you don't see the relationship as being an important, valuable end in itself, you won't do anything to sustain it. And if you're not doing anything to sustain your relationships, they're going to break. The only alternative will be to attempt to imprison people the way that governments do and the way that people do with really burdensome contracts and things like that. They're attempting to imprison people, and prisoners are not happy shoppers. If a prisoner can get away from you, he will. And so you may temporarily abate your loss of this victim, but it will not last. And my advice would be to explore that sociable strategy, to learn to think in terms of trading emotional values, to learn to recognize the value of emotional values and to incorporate them in your praxis for your own benefit, your own emotional benefit, but also because it's the only long-term strategy that will give you a happy life, that will leave you happy with your life when it's almost over. And that's the part that you do not think about when you're thinking about getting ahead in this one-off transaction, is you don't think about what your life is going to be like 50 or 70 years from now. And how you're going to feel about it then, how the people around you are going to feel about you, and what you're going to feel like you got for your trouble. Your time alive is your soul capital. Your time alive as a human being, as a self-aware, self-conscious, self-motivated, self-adoring human being. That's your soul capital. Everything else is just a token in the game. Everything else is just stuff. It's just there. And what you have at the end is yourself. And the self that you have at the end will be the consequence of the choices that you've made. And if you made nothing but poor choices, you will not have a happy life. It cannot happen. If you want better people in the world, make them yourself. But start from the inside out. Make yourself a better person. My name is Greg Swann. This is the Church of Splendor. Atheist, anarchist, egoist, and adamantly pro-family. If you got a kid at home, scoop them up in your arms and hug them tight. If you don't, go visit your sister or your friends, or just go down to the playground and take a look at young human beings and see how wonderful, how remarkable, what incredibly rich assets they are. Invest yourself in understanding what makes us remarkable, what makes us wonderful, and what makes us worth reproducing. And if you can commit yourself to that, then commit yourself wholeheartedly, because the rewards are immense, and compared to the cost, the rewards are unbelievably bounteous, and there's no other way to achieve them. I want you to have a wonderful week. I am so grateful to you for paying attention to me, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks.